Welcome back to Wise Tech for Wise Money, the show where we explore the tools and strategies that help build lasting wealth and impact. I'm your host, Gary Wayne, founder of A1 Solutions International, where we help SMEs, corporates, wealth managements, RIAs and family offices scale through precision growth systems, AI-powered client acquisition and operational strategy. Today, we're diving into the critical role of big data, traceability and transparency in driving change across Africa and beyond. Our episode is titled Harnessing Big Data for Africa's Future and Exposing the Carbon Credit Myth. I'm joined today by Jaye Connolly, CEO of RippleNami and author of the book Carbon Credits Are Crap. Here, her company is transforming how nations, governments and businesses leverage technology to solve problems of scale, from national data digitization to climate reporting. That was a very long introduction. Hey, I really appreciate you being here. I almost got tongue-tied. Thank you for joining me. Perhaps you can start by introducing yourself, sharing a little bit about your journey and RippleNami's rise.
Sure. So I grew up in the great state of Texas in the oil and gas industry back in the early 80s. And so I spent my first couple years in big corporations and then went into mining and then eventually moved to California, and there was no oil, gas, or mining. So I went into healthcare. So I became a M&A, roll-up expert, mergers and acquisitions expert, rolling up about 5 different sectors of healthcare, very big deals, big lab, big, name it, different sectors. So I did that for 25 years, and then I became a turnaround CEO because I knew what companies wanted to buy because I was a buyer. So then how I could apply that to selling companies. So I came into my first company, early 2000s, was an AI healthcare tech company and had been around for 14 years by the time I got there, and I was the 5th and final CEO, and we successfully sold that to one of the biggest healthcare companies here in the States, and it's still active today. And so I've done 4 of these, and RippleNami came across my my desk and said, hey, what do you think about Africa? You've been there once. And they're doing this big data play. They don't know what they're doing, and so can you help out? And so that's how I got associated with RippleNami in Africa, big data.
And how long have you been there?
11 years. So this is not a turnaround. This is a passion. It's a dog life. It feels like, a year or so, but it's been 11 years because it takes a while to get your legs, your sea legs in Africa. But once once we got in, we're in now. Yes, been real busy.
For those that are not familiar, what is RippleNami's core mission, and what problems are you working to solve?
Yeah, so when we look across Africa, there's 1.5 billion people that live among 54 countries. By 2030, they will have the largest workforce in the world because 50% of their population is under 15 or 16 years old. So they have this emerging marketplace coming, and they didn't have the legacy ICT systems that all the rest of the countries have. So with the propensity of the cell phone adoption, everybody's got 1 to 2 to 3 cell phones there. There's a lot of big data being generated. So our mission was, how do we connect these unconnected populations of people to data they need to thrive, not to survive, but to thrive. So our mission is connecting the unconnected. And what we do is we go into governments and we work with the president and we pull together all the ministries' data. It's the first part of e-government to solve very big problems that help these countries get to a sovereign nation, be able to pay off their debt and grow their middle income.
So when we look at RippleMania, why are they just in Africa and not elsewhere when they have so much expertise?
Yeah, so we have expertise in Africa. And so why we have doubled down in Africa is because there's no legacy ICT systems. So tell me another country that I could go into and take all their ministries' data and pull it together. And who would allow me to do that? Not very many countries. No one in the U.S. We actually worked in the U.K. We pulled together all the veterans data for the Minister of Defense. That was a real small project. But we really want to help these African countries become sovereign nations. So that's why we're focused in Africa. There's a lot to do. There are a lot of countries, and they're willing to let us deploy technology that others wouldn't because of legacy ICT system.
You said there's 54 countries in Africa,
There
which,
is.
to be honest, with you, I didn't quite realise. You only think of the big names when you're not an expert in that arena. So how many of those 54 countries are you actually servicing?
So we're in the Sub-Sahara region, so we're in 30 countries.
30 countries. And that's ongoing,
Ongoing,
regular,
yeah.
ongoing practices.
Ebbs and flows, ups and down, different projects here or there. Yes.
And do you have people located in those countries? Or
We
you
do.
travel
We only have a small group in the States. We're California based. And every country we go into, we only hire within that country. We build capacity and we train everybody up. And they are the hardest working people, and we'll never hire another U.S. person again. We won't. They're just too great. And I tell that to the U.S. people that call me looking for jobs. I'm like, no, only Africa. So we build capacity in each country, which is important as well.
So they must love you because you're, number one, obviously doing a fantastic job for them, but you're employing from within and educating their people.
We are, and bringing them up to speed, and boy, they are quick learners. They are very quick learners. And, we've been using AI for the last 10 years in Africa, and now it's all the rage. And we're like, yeah, our folks in Africa already know how to use it. That's what we do all day, every day. Because you take all these big data sets that don't have any hope of matching, right? We're trying to match people that don't have the same name in this database, or they don't use the tax ID number, they don't have a national ID number. Different, so there's a hard matching process. So we deploy as much technology as we can to pull this data in, normalize it, we visualize it, we analyze it, and then solve for whatever the problem is we're solving for.
Obviously, you've got a lot of projects going on. Could you give me an example of a case study or the type of projects you're doing?
Yeah, so one of the biggest things we're doing is tax compliance as it relates to property. So when we look across Africa, Africans don't put money in the bank. They invest in property, they invest in livestock, and they invest in agriculture. So when we look at properties, we looked at the compliance rate of property-related taxation, and it's about 2% across the board. 2%, meaning 2% of the people are paying their fair share of their either property tax or their rental income tax. We decided, well, actually one of the presidents decided that's what he wanted to focus on. So we became experts very quickly, and we pulled together probably 13 different ministries' data and departments and agencies that had a little bit of something to do with property to pull together a complete view of who owns what property, what's the water usage, is there sewage, electricity, you name it. So when someone objects, we can pull it up visually. We can also say, well, the last 7 years you've had this water usage, so it's not vacant. So we know there's somebody in there. So that's what we really focus on across the board now, because it brings it can bring up to $1 billion per country of US dollars of taxation. Yeah, property tax alone up to $1 billion. And then rental income, depending where you are, up to $500 million, $250 to $500 million. So that is life-changing, right? That helps. When you look at the governments and most of their budget money, 90% goes to paying off debt. So very little goes to infrastructure. So how are you going to get out of, you just keep digging, the hole keeps getting deeper and deeper. So this allows them to pay off that debt and actually put the money where it's supposed to, taxpayer money where it's supposed to go.
That's amazing. I mean, how does big data integrity differ when you're building systems in underdeveloped countries versus developed countries?
Data's all different kinds of forms. So we started in Uganda on the taxation project, and they have very rich data. And then we pivoted over to the Gambia, who's a fairly new department, and we had to create all the data. We had to put Google Street Maps, we had to do building imagery analysis. Luckily, they had the Google GPS coordinates on the buildings. There's no proper addresses. So we pieced together the data there. So they have a very rich data set now because it's new. So just because you have big data doesn't mean it's good data, right? It could be crap in, crap out. So what we like about the Gambia, it's fresh data and it's real and it's clean. And then, we always have legacy data issues that we've got to deal with. So we have to clean the data. And then once it's clean, then it's the start of e-government is really what we're trying to start, because you have all these different data silos, which we love to break down data silos and solve for problems. So that is what we're solving for, these big data silos that across the globe, across the world, we're using between 1 and 3% of the data that we generate. That's nothing.
How long does a project take? Or like just keep rolling, or?
Yeah, so it takes us about a year to get everybody's data in the pipe, and we do a lot of iterations, and then a lot of people are like, it's my data, and then I have to go back to the president's like, it's not your data, minister, it's my data, give them the data. So we have that little dance we do, but for the most part, if we can get the data, we can get it done in 6 months, but it's usually taking about 12 months. Once the data's in, we'll constantly do data refresh, and it's up and running, and we're out. We'll keep a team in there because it is an analytic. It's a high analytic. When the data comes out, there are analytics because you've got to say, oh wait, Bob has this property down the street, but yet Tom, his brother, has 2 more over there. Wait, they're just different names. We've learned all the shell games on how people hide properties under their kids' names, etc. So. We've uncovered that. We've uncovered anything you can figure out not to pay taxes, we've uncovered. So it takes us about a year to get it up and implemented, and then it just runs.
So, I mean, how does ongoing business come about? Obviously, if you do that job in 30 countries, what happens next?
Oh, well, it takes a while. So so that's just one example of taxation. So now once we have that data, there's so much more we can do with it. So one country came and said, look, we're trying to uncover money laundering. And one of the data sets we pull in are all the business license. And with the business license, we get all the directors. So we can see who's associated with each director. So one country is going to use that data for money laundering. Another country is going to use it for helping to map a national ID, because they don't use, like in the States, we have social security number. In UK, you guys have your own number that you're given at birth, and everything's tied to that. Even your tax ID, our tax ID number is our social security number. Everything is tied to our social security number. Over there, national IDs have been around. Maybe some countries have them, some don't. Maybe they're 10 plus years old. Not all of them are using it. So all these different IDs, each ministry creates an own ID. And one country is like, God, and we create one ID for everybody. We call it the RippleNami ID. And so the country's like, can we use that as our standard ID? I'm like, we can map that to a national ID if you like. So there's unintended consequences that were good. Once you get big data sets, people are like, hey, can we do this? Can we do that? So there's constantly new projects based upon the initial data set we pull in. And then we do we work in livestock traceability, food security traceability, agriculture, climate, and we're getting ready to do mining traceability. So to us, big data doesn't matter. We don't change our system. We change the front end on what the inputs are, but the back end never changes.
So that just one project leads to another and it's ongoing.
Yeah, it's a trust.
I'm interested
it's trust.
because I'm nosy. How do you charge them? How do you charge out for these projects?
Each project is a little different, but for the most part, what happens is we do a PPP, private partnership agreement, and we'll go through an RFP process. We're the only ones over there doing this, so there's no competition really. When we're there, there's an implementation fee. So we'll either help them find contract financing, like this last country we just did. We went to the IMF and got contract financing for them, or they'll fund it themselves. And then after implementation, we do a revenue share. So as long as they're succeeding, we're succeeding. Everybody's, we're all rowing in the same boat, as we say. So we'll do a revenue share. Contracts are usually 6 to 10 years, depending on, the.
That's amazing. You
Yeah.
talk about blockchain and how your platform provides governments and organisations with actionable insight. How does blockchain fit into what you do? And obviously it's pretty new to all of us. Pretty complex. Title, subject matter. Could you
Yeah,
explain a bit about that?
so we are not. We looked at using blockchain and we decided that it was too expensive for the countries and it really wasn't giving us the benefit that we needed. So we can do it with data sets and data centers and how we structure the data and keep it clean and auditable and non-change data. So we can do it without blockchain. If people insist on using blockchain, we will, but it's higher cost and you can't do as many transactions as you want to. It's a little bit slower.
So is blockchain generally, and I'm not talking about currencies, with issues within, is it something that's really not going to be taken up, you think, as we move forward?
Yeah, I think there's going
Because
to
it's
be
too expensive?
better, yeah, and slow. I think there's going to be bigger, better technology out there. So what we do is when the next greatest thing comes about, we'll just sit on top of that. But we looked at it, we deployed it in one instant, and we didn't really see a great benefit for the cost and for it was slow for us. Like we're processing, 40 million people's worth of data from 13 different sources. So we need a very fast processing system. So everyone's touting it in the climate industry for tokenization. But to me, if you don't have good data going in, all you're doing is tracking bad data. So it's not a true transparency. Unless I can see it, I'm a visual learner. Data visualization is huge to me. I want to go down and drill down to the house. I want to be able to walk, my little man around the street virtually. If I can't do that, I don't really trust what's in a database.
You mentioned tokenization. I mean, I'm digressing a bit, but is there something, do you believe in tokenization? And see, think it's a
A lot of
worthwhile?
a lot of people do. I
No,
personally
no.
don't. I personally don't. And I'm a former auditor, so right, it was supposed to be an audit trail so that you could put disparate data in different data blocks, and no one could hack it, which is great. But there's other ways you can secure data these days. But you'll hear that more and more on the climate side is tokenization, blockchain, and they're also for cryptocurrency. We initially used it for cryptology, not for cryptocurrency, but for cryptocurrency, it's here to stay for now until something else comes about.
Web3 that everybody's talking about?
Web3, yeah, I don't know.
You're not an advocate.
No, we're not. We're not there. I mean, AI, yeah, we're gonna leverage AI as much as possible. We've created large language models for each country that we're in.
And AI has really only just begun, hasn't it?
It's been around 75 years. I ran a company back in the early 2000s
Really?
that had been around 14 years. Yeah. So it's been being deployed. What I think is what we're seeing now, it's mainstream. So the common,
Yeah, sure.
non-linguistic engineer can, you don't have to write rules anymore. But we use, back in the day, symbolic and statistical natural language processing, meaning that understood a word in the sentence structure. So that's the old AI. Now you just put in something to ChatGPT and it pops it out. So it's for the common person. So that's why the big push is. And I'll tell you, I just got back from the UN and from Climate Week in New York, and everyone's talking about AI and everyone's talking about data centers and the energy requirements that it's going to have. So they're all trying to figure that out, and that is where all the money investments are going to go now, is to green energy for AI and raw materials. So that's where Africa becomes very important, because all those raw materials sit under those forests in Africa. So that's why we're also going to offer mining traceability.
So it's going to make Africa very rich.
So they already sit on $75 trillion in unmined minerals. they're a raw material exporter. Until they can actually process the material in country, they will continue to get pennies on the dime. It's pretty sad. So I've been working with the Minister of Mines. I'm speaking at another conference in Cape Town and in Australia coming up about mining traceability and making sure the communities and it's sustainable and it's environmentally safe, all those good things that aren't happening, that they do make sure it happens. And then after they're done mining, we want to help them get mining reclamation, which they have funds to do, and the mining companies, but 9 times out of 10 they don't.
Sounds like you're going to be around a long time.
I don't know. We'll see.
Okay, going back to your technology,
Sure.
what makes your technology so scalable and user-friendly, distinct from the other stuff we see out there?
So we built it that way because we built it so you didn't need an education. So the back end we built to where data comes in, it is analyzed, it is visualized, it solves whatever the problem we're trying to solve for, and spits out the answer. So that back end, we spent a lot of time and money designing that so it can lift any piece of data we pull in. We don't care if it's a person, place, or thing. We did livestock traceability with cows. So that back end never changes. So we just spend a lot of time building it so that it is accommodating any type of data source. And then the front end, we change that up, but it's easy to change. It's widgets and it's not hard at all. It's just our problem is, the system's built, now we got to fill the bucket with data. So it's usually the normalizing the data, getting the data in, and then once it's in, it's in.
Before we move on and talk about your book, I'm just interested to know, as a young lady, you're interested in things that, so very complicated, technical, driven. Has that always been your interest?
Yeah, so my background is accounting, right? So I was an accountant by trade, and I figured if you know the numbers, you can rule any company. So by that, and then when I went into M&A, you're a jack of everything, right? And then I lived with the deals post-close to make sure that it made all the operational synergies that we needed. And these are big public companies. So I got the operational side. So I'm a problem solver and a strategic thinker. Those are kind of my 2 strengths. And for every problem, there's a solution and many solutions, but what's the easiest? And I'm a real simple person. So if I can't do it in 3 strokes or whatever it is, and it's too complicated. Let's make it as simple as possible. And when I see a problem, I'm not going to just sit here and talk about it. Like, what can we do to fix it? And that's how we got in the climate. Is a president called and said, hey, what's this climate stuff? And I'm like, I don't know. So off I went to Scotland to some COP. I get it. I get what's going on. This is a big climate economy, and we need to help accelerate your participation in it.
So do you miss M&A?
No, I don't. There's no life. You just work to death. My daughter, growing up, I would pick her up from school and I'm like, shh, I'm on a call, get in the car. And so she's a lawyer now, and I try to get her to be a transactional, M&A lawyer. She goes, if I have to hear definitive merger agreement or LOI or anything else, I'll just kill myself. No. So she's actually an appointment litigator.
Fantastic. So let's go back to your book, Carbon Credits Are Crap. That's a pretty bold title.
Yes.
What inspired you to write it? Tell me a bit about it.
So I was asked to do a TED Talk in August of last year. In true TED form, you can't talk about details. And actually, the curator of the TED Talk in San Diego came up with the title. So she's in the book. I thank her for that. Because I said, well, I'd like to talk about carbon credits, because there was this giant fraud in 2023. And I had read the article about this community in northern Zimbabwe in Kariba that had, there was 1 million hectares of forest that the community was protecting, and they were to get 30%. And this Swiss company made $100 million. And they said, well, 90% of the forest-related carbon credits are worthless. So poor companies, poor climate, but good for the communities. And I'm like this all the time. I have to go see this community who got $30 million of benefits. So I've set off on this journey. So that was my TED Talk, is my whole journey in learning about this. And when I got there, man, it 3 flat tires, bad roads, just terrible conditions. And that's why these projects exist, because nobody like me is going out there to check it. And I talked to the chief, and I'm like, what did you get in 12 years? And he goes, I got a bag of seed and a bag of soil. And I'm like, what? You can't be true. You're supposed to get $30 million. And he's like, US dollars. And I'm like, well, actually euros, but yeah. He's like, this place would look like New York City. So that was my TED Talk. But I couldn't talk about Zimbabwe. I couldn't talk about the players. I had to be very general. So one weekend, it was cloudy here in San Diego. So I'm like, screw it. I'm just going to write a book about it and about the people I met along the way. And I'm a big travel person. So it's kind of a travel adventure novel, and, the trials and tribulations of Africa. And then educating people about why Africa is important and what has happened in the past and the history of it. And then taking, kind of carbon credits for beginners, if you will. Like, what is a carbon credit? What is this scheme? It's a $2 trillion industry a year, and it's been going on for 20 some or 30 years. Like, what the heck? And they're not working, so we're not changing it. We're just like, yeah. So the scandal after scandal happened in 2023, and I just thought it needed attention in one place. And I got a publisher in UK. I wanted it released in UK because that's where the climate finance is, and the EU is the climate pushers of these carbon credit schemes. So that's where I wanted it to go first. So we released it in June, and in October this month, in October 21st, US version will come out, and we're releasing it NASDAQ. So that'll be fun.
I haven't read it yet, but I have found it and will be reading it.
Okay. It's a fun read. It's easy to read, and it's just like people didn't know. And I was shocked after I did the TED Talk. People came up to me and said, we have no idea what you're talking about. And I'm like, you guys do this. You buy carbon credits all the time on airlines when it says, do you want to reduce your emissions? That is a carbon credit. And it's one company out of Norway called Choose, CHOOOSE, that's buying up these worthless carbon credits, selling them to the airlines, and then selling them to us. And the communities get nothing because they bought them, cents on the dollar. So it's just it's a not a good justice system to me. You want these people to protect the forest and do this, and they're doing it and getting no reward. That's not okay. So it's an expose that the reporters had already broke, like Guardian, Bloomberg, and I had called the reporters after I went out to Kariba, and I said, hey guys, you got the story. There's a part 2 you're missing. The communities did not receive the money. And to their credit, they sent a team out to verify what I already saw, and they rewrote, they updated their report.
The carbon credit industry is obviously flawed. Why is it particularly in the US and Europe more than other places, or is it not?
Well, the EU is mandating it. So if you want to work in the EU, you want to be listed in the EU, you have to have your carbon emissions net zero. You can only do so much internally. So the whole scheme was, well, if we fund projects in underdeveloped countries, we do good and prevent a forest, prevent emission, absorb carbon. That's a good thing, and so we'll get credit for it. 1 ton of carbon that is avoided, you get a carbon credit. So that's where it started, and I think it started good, but I think it's just a manual, disparate, data silo, consultant-driven system. And that is a recipe for, so there's a bunch of me's out there, or how are we going to digitize this process, get rid of all these consultants that are high-priced, high-paid, takes forever. Let me tell you how they are measuring trees and carbon and how they grow. They send people out in the field with a tape measure and a ladder and a clipboard, and they random sample, measure the diameter, and write it down, on their clipboard, and put it in some Excel spreadsheet when they get back, and that's how they determine how much carbon that tree has absorbed. we can fly a satellite over every single day. We have the technology, people are doing it now. And we can say, this is the type of tree, this is how much it grew, this is the carbon it absorbed. So technology has advanced, but that community did not, because it was fat and happy eating, consultant dollars.
So how does technology create a path towards true traceability in climate reporting and carbon markets?
Yeah, so we can actually see if all the parties who have pointed the finger at each other, no one has taken responsibility for this $100 million fraud, and still today they are still talking about it. It's been 2023, the project died, so I'm like, oh my gosh, you're still talking about it and you're wanting money from the companies. It's disgusting. So how does technology come into play? So right now we can accelerate. First off, to do a forest, it takes three to 4 years to get something up and running as a project developer. That is a lot of time and money. And then you constantly have to show permanence, that what you've done is permanent, and you're adding additionality. You're not just drawing a circle around a forest saying this forest is protected. You're saying we're preventing people from burning down the forest because we gave them jobs or education, whatever it was. So for technology, we can actually see if that's really happening, because they only send people out in the field every 5 years. So now we can see it. I can go down, I can talk to the chief via video, and I'm like, tell me what's going on. Show me, oh, did they build a school? Where did they build a school? Show me the school. I can visually see it with my own eyes. So that's one thing, is data visualization. But then you have the data, you can trace it. And everybody pointed to, now, thousands of pages of document, a bunch of glossy pictures that don't exist. I want to see real data. I want to see satellite imagery. I want to see LiDAR. I want to see remote sensing. We can pull all those data sets in. So anybody can log in and say, hey, this is what I invested in this solar farm. Let me go see the capacity. Let me go see how many kilowatts it's pushing out. Let me go look and see it visually on satellite imagery. And is it working, yes or no? And I want to talk to the community leaders and ask them. And educate. So the education was not there at the community level, at the local government level.
So when we hear a lot of talk about climate control and the climate problem and all that, and global warming, and in my lifetime I've seen a couple of cycles. I've seen when I was a kid, really hot summers and all the stuff we're seeing. What is different now?
So I would say, because I don't have an opinion on, is climate change real? People bash me. I still can find scientists that say no, and I can find scientists that say yes. So I'm going to stay in the middle and say, look, what I am observing, and it could be the axis of the Earth. It is getting warmer right now, which means storms are more severe. And I'm going to talk about Mozambique. So Mozambique has such severe cyclones now, which are hurricanes for us in the States, that it is wiping out all their food. And speaking with the ministers, they're like, we just are trying to get people one meal a day. It's not 3 meals, 1 meal a day. So I actually went to the climate people. I said, hey, can we tap down the severity of a cyclone? And they're like, yeah, we can. I'm like, wow. Cool, let's talk more. So we're going to explore that. But we've been seeding clouds, so we're changing weather patterns. So I don't know what's man-made. I don't know what's Earth, just the cycle of the Earth, the axis of the Earth. There's a lot of factors that go into it. And you and I, we've heard since the 70s, remember the Ice Age was coming, and then the 80s, and the 2000 end of the world was coming, and then 12 years later it was going to die, And so I tell the climate folks, I said, look, you have terrible marketing. Your message is off. You keep trying to threaten us and do this. Just talk to us like humans. So we're actually having this discussion on October 16th. And I'm like, treat us like, humans that need to understand what you're saying so it resonates with us, so we understand. So that's happening on the 16th. I don't know what the results are going to be, but what I keep hearing is 75% of the glaciers have melted. I said, oh, okay, well, why don't you guys just say that? They're like, if 75% of the trees went away, you would be very upset. I'm like, yeah, but you don't talk that way. You just lecture us and scream at us.
Oh,
So
they lecture you, and they scare everybody.
and it gets, then it becomes noise and no one listens and everybody's like, yeah, whatever. So there's 3 countries that make up, well, actually, China makes up the majority of the carbon emissions. And then US and India are the other 2. There's 7 countries in all. So my thing is, why don't you focus there? Why are you coming after poor little Africans saying you can't use oil or whatever? This little stupid cook stove to cook for your family of 10 on. It's hypocrisy. It's the global north hypocrisy is what I call it.
Yeah,
China,
money, isn't it?
yeah, and China is the biggest emitter. So, and we know exactly which companies within China are the largest emitters. So why don't we just tackle that? Because I guess it's not good for business.
I mean, I see, talking about the motor industry in the UK and Europe, they're obviously, I don't know what it's going on in the States, but they're all changing to electric cars. I believe
California,
electric cars are as bad as petrol.
they still use fossil. Everybody hates the fossil fuels, but I got to tell you, fossil fuels are here to stay. We are never going to see it in our lifetime, and they're pretty good right now as far as their emissions, etc. Blah blah blah. They've done really well, but electric cars require rare earth minerals that sit under trees in the ancient forest of all over. And they're destroying the land, and they don't think through the ecosystem. So I always ask people in the audience, how many of you guys drive Teslas? And everybody's all proud, raises their hand. I'm like, how many of you would drive a Tesla knowing that your 5-year-old is digging the cobalt and lithium out of the ground with a spoon with no protective gear? Because that's what's happening in Africa. And they're like, what? So it's just shifting, it's just shifting climate and climate responsibility. And for Africa and the rare earth minerals that we need to build. I just did a post on steel. Every wind farm, every solar panel, everything needs steel. China is the largest steel producer, and Indonesia's second. They're using 1 million metric tons of iron ore a week. And it's not green, it's not friendly, and it's getting scraped out of every hole you can imagine.
So I don't understand if they talk about. I mean, you're bit of an expert. I'm just a layman and an ordinary person. But when I was a kid, right, and we have digressed a bit, but when I was a kid, we used to have thick smog in London. We don't get that now. We don't get any of that pollution.
EPA, we've done good response. I think each country, US, UK, and EU have done really well on regs. I have a house in California and one in Colorado. Colorado, it's perfect. Drink the water out of the stream. It's very clean. California, we have such high regulations. Everything is overly expensive, and we still have smog in LA. So it hasn't the green initiative, we still have it. And when we have in the October, November, we have what's called Santa Anas, where the wind comes from the desert and blows everything out to the ocean, and you see it. You just can see the layers of pollution just hanging out of the ocean, and we know it's going to come back after the Santa Anas are gone. So I think the highly regulated states aren't necessarily the best, because it's just more tax money, more this, more that. We pay $2 more a gallon.
Crazy.
We don't feel any. So I think those 3 countries, the UK, have done a really good job on EPA, and we have such high regulations. China, India, it's
interesting.
Yeah, and Africa doesn't have enough cars. Like, people are walking everywhere. They're organic farmers. They're like, we're going to kill all your cows. I'm like, oh my gosh. You know what? We can feed the cows biochar, which we can capture. We can use crop waste to make biochar. It's eco-friendly charcoal. Feed it to the cows, no methane. Like there's so many different solutions, but the fear mongering is just getting old. It's, you know,
I think I'm very cynical. I think it's all about making money. Well, circling back to Africa, where do you see the role of big data and technology over the next 5 or 10 years? How do you see it growing?
they, well, their population is growing, so therefore their data is growing, and they will be ahead of this big data in to help you guys. So they're going to be more advanced. In fact, they are more advanced in some regards with respect to mobile money. Everybody's like, oh, we need to give them cryptocurrency, blah, blah, blah. They've had mobile money, meaning that you can buy mobile minutes on your phone, and you're at a bar and you call me, or like, hey, Jay, I forgot my wallet. Can you pay the bar for me? And I'm like, what's the till number? Every register has a till number, and I just send money to the till, and it pays your tab, and you walk out of the restaurant. We can't do that here in the States. But they did it because they weren't bankable people because they didn't have national IDs. So they worked around the system. They did that. We have Apple Pay now, but they were 11 years before Apple. So it's to me, they grow, they innovate quicker because they don't have that legacy hangover.
You got the politics.
Yeah, they got the politics. Let me tell you, they got politics.
Really?
Oh yeah, and it's very tribal. It's very tribal over there.
Yeah, no, I realise that from I've visited a few times. How do you see governments and organisations generally adopting more transparent systems in the future?
There's some countries we probably will never be able to work in, and some countries will build it. So new administrations are coming in, and they're just tired. What you're seeing is the younger generation is starting to finally tell the old guard, we're tired of suffering. We want something new, and they grew up on the cell phone. They're all data driven, so it's easy for them to take the leap to digitize. They're not opposed to it, and there's going to be some people that they like their fiefdoms, and they're never going to need a quick no. I'm not going to try to convince anybody any differently. It's like you don't like Nigeria is one of them. I can't work in Nigeria.
Never say never.
No, right now, not never, but not now. There's 200 million people in Nigeria, but they don't want traceability. The governors do.
It's one of the biggest, fastest growing economies, isn't it, Nigeria?
Yeah. I mean, it's almost the size of the United States, and not geographically, but population-wise.
Yeah, I never realised that.
Yeah, so we've got about 350 million. They're like at 250 million. Gaining quickly.
For innovators and investors that are looking to get into this space, what advice would you give them?
Give me a call if you want to get into Africa. We've got the scars to prove. We learned it the hard way. But what we did is we partnered with really good partners within each country. It's not me walking in by myself. It's usually the top 5 richest guys, one of those guys that really want to make a difference for their country. And there's a big tech push for revenue enhancement. And so we walk in together, and whatever the administration is, we don't care who's the president. We just need to know. You have to go to the president, because if it's not done at the top, the ministers aren't going to follow. Because ministers can't compel another minister to give them data. Only the boss can, right? So we've learned a lot. We've got a great network. There's no one I can't get to. So if anybody's interested in Africa, they should just give me a call.
If you could change one thing about how the world manages data transparency and climate reporting, what would it be?
I mean, I think at the end of the day, you got to see it. The data visualization to me is the most important thing. And because even now on social media, when you see a meme or you see a news report, like, is that real? Like, unless I can see someone talking around, I mean, it's going to be hard with AI. It's hard to answer that question right now. We're going to keep doing our remote sensing, whatever we can pull in, Google Street Maps, you name it, anything visual that we can actually see, feel, touch, and we trust. You got to be able to trust the source. So there's probably going to be some technology out there that will determine whether it's AI or not. AI is moving very quickly and people are very scared of it. I'm not scared of it. We embrace it, but we embrace it with guardrails because it can get very ugly.
Right, that's great. Before we wrap up, please, can you tell our listeners where they can find you and where they can find your book and your TED Talk?
Yeah, so TED Talk, it's on YouTube under Jaye Connolly. And you've got my name. Just if you put my name in, you'll be able to see it there. And then
You're
book,
very famous.
instant famous, right? And then the book, Carbon Credits Are Crap, it's available online. If you have Amazon, if you're in the UK, W.H. Smith, Waterstones, LID Publishing is the publisher. Here in the States, Barnes and Noble, it's everywhere. You can put it in Amazon Books, Google Books. And then to get a hold of me, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I answer every single LinkedIn. I manage my own LinkedIn. I do not let my social media guys touch it. It's my voice, it's my say. And I meet a lot of interesting people over LinkedIn. So I encourage people to use that.
It's fantastic. Well, say to everybody, thank you for listening in. Jaye, thanks for coming off. I'd like to have a chat with you in a minute, but just to finish off, I'm Gary Wayne, founder of A1 Solutions International. This has been Wise Tech for Wise Money. I want to thank everybody for listening, and I want to thank you, Jaye, again for all the insights and information you give us. It's been really, really interesting, and not the normal topic that we talk about on a podcast. So I've learned a lot today, and I hope all the listeners do as well. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.